Well, hello and thank you for joining me. If you're interested in my sandbox settings, mod list or build, there is a link in the description for episode 0. So I kick things off in Rosewood. It's a pretty standard start, run for the TV, watch Life and Living while I tear up some clothing. Now I've got a rule I live by. It's the first day, so I'm going to make a big play. With the new hordes, I want to get as much of that cleared out as fast as possible. And on day 1, there's not really any consequences for dying. If I do die, I've lost 30 minutes. If I pull it off, I'm set up to win for a good couple of weeks at least. Now, before I go too far, I do stop off at the house to the north of me, make sure I craft one of the new sling bags. They're not great, but it is better than not having any bag at all. Now they've got a bit of storage. I've got to gather a couple of items. I'm going to need a flame, I'm going to need some fuel, and I'm going to need a campfire. Thankfully, Rosewood has a couple of houses with pre-built campfires to save me too much effort. And I even get lucky here and I find a log as well. To get matches, check glove boxes, check bedrooms, and you should be able to get away with them. From here, I just head down to the big car park by the church. If you watch my helicopter fight video, you'll know that I love having fights here. It's a nice open space, I can move around easily. When it came to getting the fire going, I did have a little bit of a problem. It turns out rags are not great fuel. Now, I don't know what 1.5 means, but goddamn did it feel like it meant seconds. Not to worry though. All I had to do was move around a little bit, get the zombies out of the way, and this time I actually remembered to chuck a log on the fire so it would burn for a little bit. Once you've got one zombie on fire, it's pretty easy to get that fire passed about. Walk across the wooded bits, cut through some buildings. You can use the low fences as well. Spent most of the morning and early afternoon just walking these guys round and getting them burning all real good. Once I had them down to the last few, I started playing a bit more aggressively. If you've seen any of my tutorial series, the one about fire in particular, you'll understand why it is I'm making sure to get hits on them. If not, well worth a watch. Get that shameless self-plug in there, I suppose. Now, the fire wasn't 100% effective. There were a couple left for me to clean up, but as any politician will tell you, if your actions can solve 8% of a problem, you're doing a great job. With the high street cleared out, it leaves me free to go ahead and loot out the zippy mart. Obviously, taking the smoker tray, I am going to need a couple of ciggies, and what better place to get them than the shelves in here? As well as that, I found myself some good time comic books, a couple of maps, and a little bit of supplies. Now, on the way back home, I discover an ambulance. Now, not only are these great for getting the duffel bag out the back, but I also set the alarm off as well. Because of how it's placed next to school, this means we're going to be pulling the zombies out of the school, which is going to make things a lot easier for me in the coming days. My final stop on the way home is just this house to the north. I actually go in there for storage for some shelving and boxes, but I get really lucky and I find a few skill books in one of the crates I'm going to steal. This is just the house to the north of where I'm staying. It's pretty decent because it's got a few of these cardboard boxes which you can move at level 0. It's got these big metal shelves that I'm moving here. It's even in one of the rooms, it's actually got some gun cabinets. Now, you do need a bit more carpentry skill to be able to move them, and a lot more carpentry skill to be able to move them safely. But at the same time, it's nice to know you've got that sort of storage just to the north of you. And at some point I may grab that. I spend the rest of the evening doing busy work around the base. I arrange some loot, I put some stuff in the freezer. It's nothing really more exciting happens for the rest of day 1. However, we've set ourselves up for a good game now. We've got the big horde cleared out, we've got some basic supplies in the base, we've got the storage capacity we need within the base. So everything is going my way at this point, and I'm quite happy with the end of day here. I think it's really important to get your storage set up on day 1, just because it means that the next days when you go out looting, you've got the capacity to bring it all back. Obviously, we've got the default storages, we've got cupboards, we've got a few little shelves, But having that extra store hold within your safe house, it does make a world of difference, so get it done as quick as you possibly can and set yourself up to win. I wake up a little bit earlier than I meant to on day 2, but I take advantage of the time, check around the house, take inventory stock, have a little think to myself, and I sit down and wait for life and living to come on. There is a lot that I do need to get done in the early game. You can see I've started collecting tools, but as an engineer, one of my highest priorities is to get some petrol and to get some fuel bombs online. So that's going to be one of my big goals for the day. So I head out for the day. Before heading up the dusty trail, I have a quick check in my shed, see if there's anything of value up there. But when we get to the top of the road, I notice something. My first bit of good luck in this run. What do you know? Top of the street, I've got a dungeon house, so I'm going to have to deal with this now. I do mark it on the map. Even though I'm going to loot it straight away, it just helps me keep track of how many of these I've found. With my character still being very much entry level, I do have to be careful how I approach this. Obviously, we've got the big advantage here of the low fence. With these fences, you do need to pay attention a little bit. One of the biggest things people make a mistake with is swinging too early. The way to avoid that, just watch your character. You'll actually notice they look down when they're going to be attacking down. The moment they look down, take a swing, get your kill. The other thing you can do, wait till they come over, take a couple of steps back so you bait the attack, then step forward and swing. When they approach the dungeon itself, I make sure to take barricades off multiple windows, multiple doors. The reason I do this is because it means if it does get a bit too spicy in there, I've got more than one way of getting out. I'm not going to get trapped. The loot in these places as well is awesome. You're going to get skill books, but I've also had pipe bombs, molotovs and weaponry out of them, so make sure you do hit those dungeon houses. I run that loot straight back home, and then I set out about the rest of the day going out to check out some more houses in my local area. It is just pretty standard looting. I'd love to tell you that something awesome happened, but it really didn't. I went door to door, checked out some houses, brought some food home. You know, typical day in the apocalypse. In the afternoon, I ended up heading out to the fire station. On the way, I found a couple of wrecked cars, so I decided to check them for fuel. It is worth checking these wrecked cars for fuel. A bit later into the run, you'll see that I actually pick up 19 litres out of 2 wrecked cars. When I get to the fire station itself, it is a bit busier than I was expecting. And while I do put up a good fight, eventually I do end up just retreating. When I get back home, I decide to end the day getting a head start on some of the skills. I'm gonna need electrical level 3 when I move base. I'm gonna need it to be able to put in a washing machine, because hand washing your clothes just isn't the one. So I start getting a head start on that now. Sit down, read the book, chill out for a little bit, put your feet up, you know. Make sure you are doing these soft skills as well as focusing on combat and looting. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a character that doesn't progress evenly. Another day, another life and living. I wake up in good stead on day 3. Get some reading done in the morning, watch my TV show, feel ready for the day. We're going to go out, loot some houses, see what we can get. While out up by the school, I find a couple more wrecked cars. I check in the fuel tanks for them, and I find they've actually got quite a decent amount, so I decide to get the fuel, and I even find some ciggies inside the van as well, which is always a bonus. I also dip back to the shed behind that dungeon house we found the other day. There were a generator in it, so now that I know I've got a source of fuel locally, I decide it's probably worth taking the generator back to my base, make sure I've got that little bit of long-term survival in place. And while at base, I grab a little summit to go have some fun. When I head up past the school, I find a car with some keys in. I've got the fuel I've just sourced, so I decide, you know what, I'm going to have this one. Heading back up towards the high street, I see more trouble than I was expecting. And the song's already dropped, so by this point, we should definitely be killing stuff. When it comes to actually throwing firebombs, molotovs, pipe bombs, whatever you might have, I tend to just play it, get it out there quickly. You can spend forever waiting for the perfect moment, or you can just throw it, get them on fire and let Zomboid take care of the rest. Other than that, the only really thing I've got to say about this fight is I didn't really have that much pistol ammo, so I was mainly using my gun to pull them over, let the fire do the damage. So sit back, enjoy the vibes, enjoy the violence. After the ruckus had been cleared, I got to work looting nearby houses. At this point in the game, I was starting to think about building some defences on my safe house. So I start grabbing a couple of door hinges, door knobs. Other than that, I am absolutely fiending to find some nails. I do find a chest fridge, which is going to be massively useful for extending how much food I can store back at the base. But really, it is just sort of generic house loot, nothing really worth writing home about. On the way back, I do make one more stop off at these 2 wrecked cars, just to pull them out of the road. It is so handy to get these things out of the road so you're not smashing into them every time you fly around a corner. And I do have a bit of a tendency to drive like a maniac. And then after getting back home and sorting out all my loot, I decide I'm going to make myself some hot dogs. I love the cooking in this game. It's actually really simple and yet really satisfying. So yeah, give it a go. Make yourself some hot dogs. You can put toppings on them, get some salt, some peppers, some sauces on there, and it'll make you happy and cure boredom. And that's about it for day 3. You know, we have a quick ciggy, quick wash before bed, and then we go get ourselves tucked in and nice and cozy. I start day 4 by doing a little bit of organising. Now, I went to bed before I had everything organised the night before. The reason I did this is it's not worth compromising your sleep cycle just to get a few things put on shelves. You can get them on the shelves in the morning, not a problem. After the previous day's violence, I figured it's probably the best thing I could do is go clear those houses now. With the amount of bodies we put in the ground, I was certain there wouldn't be too much there to fight back. And you know, it's the apocalypse. Zomboids don't want you to know this, but things in houses are actually free. I've got like hundreds of things from houses in my house now. As you can see, there were a few zomboids there when I got there, but nothing too serious. So I get to work. I make sure I'm working from the left, going down the street, working systematically through them, and I go get myself some things from some houses. There is the odd freak in the houses, but they don't put up too much trouble. And I even managed to find myself a little gold medal, and I start to think maybe I am a winner. A little further down the street, we do get a few more zombies who want to cause some trouble. But with the position I have with the low fence, they're not really that much of a threat. All in all, it is a pretty good morning of looting, and we managed to fill the car up nicely with quite a wide selection of goods. Keep him well looked after for a little bit. Now it was time to go home and do some soft skills. The big thing I did want to focus down was foraging. Foraging is essentially the gateway to the entire tech tree and the entire crafting system now. So I wanted to make sure I'm getting some levels in there early because I'm going to be needing to do a lot of foraging in this run. After a bit of time going around foraging, I do come back in the house. I decided to take a look at the annotated map I got in the dungeon. I don't recognise it on the map, so what I do is I zoom all the way out until I find that nice little spot. Then I just double check which house it was, tap M, and then I can just mark it on. Alongside this, I decided to do electronics as well. Now, the entire game I've been collecting these radios, wristwatches, headphones, CD players. I do find it a lot easier now to do it through the crafting menu because you can actually, as you see here, just click max and queue up multiple of them. The crafting menu does like taking the item you're wearing, so put that down first though. And that's about it for day 4. I wasn't quite tired enough to sleep straight through yet, so I did take a sleeping pill. But with Ferbert and the gang watching over me, I rested quite well that night. Right up until the moment I woke up having nightmares. Damn it, Ferbert, you had one job. So I have myself a southern dip, cheeky hot dog, get some food out to defrost as I fancy making a stew later, knock out the sofa in the living room as it's been annoying me for a little bit, and I get back to sleep. Then it's a pretty standard morning. I watch Life and Living while reading a skill book. At the minute, I'm planning to build a little pillbox on the front of the place, so getting a head start on carpentry seems like a good idea for me. And then I head out into the world. We do get a bit of fog coming on, and I am facing a situation now where I've looted most of the houses in Rosewood. So I head to my favourite car park in search of fuel. Now, somehow, despite the levels of ultra-violence that have took place in this car park, there are still more zombies here for me to kill. Well, the car park itself doesn't really have much of interest. The house in the driveway next to it does. It's got the key in there, and it is looking a lot nicer than mine, which is not really saying much. With that car online, I take it down to the corner where I need to get looting. There's a little bit of that light resistance, but I quickly cut through it and get to work. And we have another one of those situations where I'd love to be able to tell you that I found something cool. But really, it was just completing my tool collection, getting a few bits of more food. Pretty standard day looting in the apocalypse, really. Across the north side, I do run into a touch of trouble. Lucky for me, I get the fight done nice and easily, right next to the fence. It's almost like they want to die. I make really good time working through the houses, and I've actually got most of them done by midday. This means that I go home quite early. I stop off and drop off all the fresh food and make some space. And then I quickly head back out because in one of the basements I found 10 logs. And with wanting to get to building some defences, that's going to save me a little bit of effort, so I grab some rope and I go get them. Before I spend hours getting to playing inventory manager, I decide to get my stew on the go. In order to make a stew, you're going to need a pot. You fill that full of water. Then this is an easy one to cook because you can just use the right click menu. In my last playthrough as well, I found these really good for weight management. Because you can add condiments like butter, margarine, lard, olive oil and vegetable oil, it becomes very easy to get a lot of calories into one of these. And then yeah, as I say, I spend hours in game playing inventory manager and making sure everything's lined up nicely in the right slots, looking pretty and perfect. After that, I decide to read a little more of my book and watch some more Life and Living. I keep reading for the rest of the evening and then I take myself to bed. Day 6 starts a little bit later than I meant it to. I did get a new watch the day before and I forgot to set the alarm on it, so that stitched me up. After that, I have a little breakfast and get to work unloading the rest of the previous day's loot. One thing I did find the previous day was a cheap generator, so my plan is to go install that at the gas station. On my way through town though, I see something in the road. The kind of thing you just can't ignore. I do still drive straight to the gas station and I get my generator set up. If you're struggling to get them in and out of cars, all you've got to do is press V and you'll get this wheel up and use that to manually open the door. If you try go into the car with it in both hands, you'll just drop it on the floor. After that, I'm trying to get some fuel for it, but I do get interrupted. Deal with the opposing zombies and I get it fueled up so that it's ready for when the power goes out. After I've got that sorted, I decide to go check out the gas station. These places are usually good for snacks, ciggies, and the back room of this one in particular tends to have extra gas cans there, so I wanted to fill up a few to take back to base with me. I craft a few more fuel bombs while I'm here as well, because I might as well, you know, the fuel's here. On my drive back through town, I do make sure just to stop off and grab that sledgehammer, because it's far too useful to leave there on the floor. And then I come up with the bright idea of going down to check out the police station. As you can see, coming down the main street is quite busy, but I do have a bag full of firebombs, so that's not really going to be too much of a problem. I found a trumpet in the upstairs of the gas station. Now, I was expecting I'd just be able to pull it out, have a little honk on it and have a merry old time, but it is just a melee weapon, unfortunately. I pull a pistol, start to make a bit of noise, and then I let rip with the firebomb. After a little while fighting and shooting them, I see my opportunity. I go straight over the fence. I kill the last ones that are on me and I just leave the rest of them to burn to death in the backyard of the fire station. And that was all it took for me to get inside the police station. Nothing really, just a few hundred flaming zombies and a box of .38 ammo. I slip neatly inside the side door and then I immediately will head to the locker room at the back. Now, these locker rooms in the last patch, I haven't seen it happen yet in 4.2.1, but I've only done this one playthrough, so I don't really know. In the last patch though, I was getting keys to the locker room every time from in here. Thankfully though, I do have the sledgehammer in my backpack I've just picked up, so I don't need a key. I quickly head home. Between the gasoline, the snacks and the haul from the police armoury, I've got quite a lot on me and want to get that dropped off. I am still in desperate need of nails. I think across the entire playthrough so far I found 2, so I decided to head over to the construction site. Unfortunately I don't find any up there, so I decide to head over to the house just to the north. As I drive down the driveway, I notice someone stood at the end. It's Lady Luck. And she's smiling. Not only do I find a dungeon house here, but when I get to the basement of the dungeon house, I find an absolute motherload of ammunition. And if you're wondering how much ammo I actually got today, well, here's what it all looked like when I had it on the shelf back at base. I finished my day off putting more things in more shelves, and then I go hit the hay. Hopefully Furbert and the boys will actually keep me safe tonight and there'll be no more nightmares. I start day 7, the final day of the week, and I want to catch up with a bit more reading, watching a little bit more Life and Living. Pretty standard start these days. We want to get those soft skills up as quick as we can. I go for the carpentry book because it is actually becoming quite a priority now for me to get a pillbox on the front of here so that I can actually have the generator running and defend the place properly. After this, I do grab a few things from the fun shelf. The plan for the day is to go hit up a couple of the remaining points of interest. I got the Gigamart, the bar, the bookshelf and the mechanics office that I do want to check out. So we're going to take some fun things. On the way up to the Gigamart, I do have to kind of admire the level of carnage in the church car park. I pull up around the rear, and while there's only a one-man welcome party here, when I come back out from looting the first room, there are a couple more waiting for me. But it's not until I try to go back inside that things really kick off. And so, the Gigamart belonged to me. I quickly got the rest of the loot out of there before heading over to the bookshop. And while I did consider shooting these last ones, there wasn't really that many of them to need it. After that, I hit the mechanics office and I grabbed some overalls. These overalls are fantastic if you're playing with Fear of Blood. The way Fear of Blood works out how much stress to cause you is based on how many different items of clothing have blood on them. So if you're just wearing overalls, you get way less stress. Then I drove over to the bar. I got myself a little bit of liquor as well. Can't beat a good drink in the apocalypse, eh? Or saying that, even just on a normal day. And then I'll make one final stop at the school. Not only do I come in here and clear out the library, but the basement in this one is like this cool ass sort of, I think it looks like a bomb shelter maybe? I don't know, I think it was awesome down here. And then I took all my loot home and I played a bit more Storage Manager. And that's it, that's how I cleared Rosewood in a week. Now if you've made it this far, you owe me a like and you owe yourself a subscribe because this is just episode 1. If you liked any of the songs, I found them all on a royalty-free playlist. That was put up by somebody called Mr. Burnt Yogurt. I've put a link to his channel in the description, and I've also put a link to every single song that I've used in the description there, so you can give some homage to the artists who've actually created them as well. But yeah, that's it. Like I say, this is just episode 1. So I will be back in a couple of weeks with another episode where we're going to look a bit more at base building, we're going to move into a forever base, and we're going to have some more kick-ass violence and vibes. I'll see you there.